tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up starting this business.
Oof, how far should I
Woof.
go back? Yeah. Yeah, there's a dog also here next to me, but no. My background, very short. I think my entrepreneurial experience starts actually with building websites. A long time ago. We're talking 20 years now, when I was 15, 16 years old. I would build websites for people. It was in Flash back in the day. I don't know if you remember.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of Flash and very little HTML. Were amazing, beautiful websites that would do a lot of stuff. It would all move and be very graphical and all that. That was fun for a while. And actually at that moment, I thought that was going to be my career. And I was sort of right, but also not. Actually, I started studying engineering because I thought, well, I'm going to get all this experience to the technical experience. Also because my dad was an engineer, but I didn't end up studying computer engineering. I went into biomedical engineering, totally different thing. Just because, first of all, the computer engineers, what they showed me on the open day was very weird. And I thought they were weird people. Secondly, along the studies, I just got an interest in these kind of things. And it was very nice to also expand into the medical field and learn a lot about that. But I've never done an engineering job because when I started applying for jobs, I figured I wanted to do something directly with customers. I didn't want to be building something in a back room. I wanted to build something together with people. So because nobody wanted to offer me a job that was in that direction, there was all engineering jobs. I studied business school for a year, and then I switched all the way to marketing. I started off in healthcare marketing because I studied biomedical engineering, so there was still sort of a connection. I started at the big pharma company called Baxter.
Yeah.
And then I rolled back into websites, sort of, websites and beyond, because what I figured is that nobody in the pharmaceutical industry understood websites, not even websites, not digital in general. And I thought about starting my own company around that, start an agency, but then I met a guy who already had an agency, and I went to work for him. I done that for 4 or 5 years. Was really interesting journey where I was responsible for customer relationships also with big pharma companies, listen to their issues, understand what sort of leap they wanted to make into digital, and then do something about that. When I started, it was often this kind of small projects. That was a website and something around it. But as things evolved and the pharmaceutical industry evolved, it became full multi-channel campaigns where we'd often replace a whole sales force because that wouldn't really pay off anymore for like old brands. For instance, instead of sending a sales force, we would do this campaign to doctors where sometimes we would offer recipes for their patients or something. There was this little soccer game for them or whatever. And that also kept the brand top of mind and kept them prescribing. It's actually more than the salespeople would do that. And then I always knew that I wanted to start my own company. So across that journey, I tried many different things and I failed at many of them. Actually, Salesflare is the first company that is actually sort of successful. It was things I started off in the medical sphere. The first thing I tried was a sort of online feed reader for doctors so they could stay on top of the latest research. I've done a few things since. And then one of the last things where I worked together with my current co-founder, we had a software business, had a lot of leads, and we wanted to follow them up better. And it was very hard with all the systems that we tried because there was so much data input involved. And then we figured like, oh, but can we automate this? Can we make sure that all of the data we're inputting into systems now actually just appears and we can rely on that and it tracks it for us instead of us having to track everything? And that's where Salesflare was born.
Yeah. So for anybody who's not familiar with the term, CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management Software. And it's really software that you can use that's kind of the single source of truth, or the place where you can get all of the information about your customers. So who they are, their contact information, as well as whatever deals that you might be working on with them. And you can track those deals through the sales process. It is a notoriously crowded industry, because a lot of people had the same revelation you did, Jeroen, which is
I know.
which is I need to use CRM software for my business. The available software out there isn't meeting my specific needs. I know how to build software. Why don't I make a CRM company? And that's why we have, I think, more than 500 CRM companies. So how does a new entrant actually make any noise in this really crowded space? Where, by the way, there are enormous companies like Salesforce, enormous.
Yeah, that is the double issue, I would say. First of all, I think if you look on g2.com, you'll now find around 800 CRMs or so.
Amazing.
I remember saying that it was something around 500, and then a bit later I checked G2 again, it was 750 all of a sudden, and just keeps increasing. It is indeed partly because people see all these different systems, and then they're like, but this doesn't really work for me, I'm going to build my own thing. And partly because there's just so much space for improvement. A lot of salespeople just hate CRMs.
Oh yeah.
So that's the basis also on which we started. You can call us brave or you can call us dumb, but we just started in a space where there was already so much, but we figured we could build something better. And it's with that conviction that we started. Now, to your question, how do you then get this to people? Because that's where most of the 800s really fail. And I wouldn't say we are extremely successful. We are not one of the big players, at least not at this moment. But I honestly don't think it's ever going to happen that we are as big as, let's say, Salesforce, HubSpot, or Pipedrive. Those are some of our main competitors.
Yeah.
These companies have enormous resources. So when you think about the situation simply, actually all of the things where just applying money is the game, all of these things are really hard for us, because these other companies have so much money that if they see a space and they say, oh, should we throw some money here? They'll just do it. And it doesn't even matter whether it's immediately profitable. They'll just throw a bunch of money there and outcompete everyone.
Yeah, the combination of the money that they can afford to put behind their marketing plus the brand that they've already built means that they're going to win in those channels.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. And the brand is very important as well. Also because a lot of decisions are made nowadays, somebody asking, what are you all using? And the thing that most people are using immediately has a big advantage.
Yes.
Plus, then if people sort of know the name, it definitely helps to bridge that first step, which is trust, which puts us at an immediate disadvantage. So we need to do our extra best to jump out. Yeah. Which means that we have extreme focus on a series of different things.
Okay, let's step back. Let's take one step back first here. Yeah. I would argue that even before you sort of focus on, marketing channels and stuff, the number one thing you need to do is find a way to differentiate yourself meaningfully from all the other players in the industry. So you mentioned Pipedrive as an example. Pipedrive hasn't been around for that long, but when they came out, they had something quite new, which was this Kanban board way of moving leads through a funnel. And they were able to just use that one feature and get tons of customers initially, and they became known for that. And now you describe them as one of the bigger players, right? So how is your business meaningfully different from the other 800 CRM software companies out there? And how should we be thinking about differentiation for our own businesses?
So if you, for instance, compare with Pipedrive, Salesflare is as easy to use, if not easier to use. It's as easy to set up, if not easier to set up, but it's much easier to keep up to date. So we're in the basis fully focused on the biggest issue in at least we believe in CRM systems is that people don't use them properly, not enough, not at all, and we try to solve that. And you'll see that if you use our system versus a Pipedrive versus a HubSpot or so, it will be way easier to get stuff in there, but there will also be way more in there, which makes that you can organize yourself better, you can communicate better internally, you make more sales, you'll follow up better, all those kind of things.
Yeah, this is notoriously the challenge in CRM. Sales reps will sort of do their own thing, make their calls, have their appointments, and then do the administrative task of going into the CRM to log that information.
Or have someone to do it for them because they're otherwise it doesn't happen.
Or just not do it. Exactly. So what you're saying is you have some kind of automated way to get the information in there.
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
And we built our software from there. So a lot of companies have sort of followed there. I know at the beginning when we started, people were like, oh, so you have all the emails in the CRM, isn't that dangerous? We got these kind of questions like, why would you do that? Now the industry has followed. Most CRM systems now have some sort of way of getting emails easily into the CRM. But we've really started from the beginning, like where we said, so there's all this data. How can we make it as easy as possible to start from what's there and then build up your system? So to give you a very concrete idea, I say Jottful, and then Salesflare says, oh, this is more about Jottful because we found that company database. These are the people you know at Jottful, so you know Dawn there, and you know this other person, and this other person. And we already detected Dawn's email signature because she emailed you, and there's his phone number and an address and all that. And there's also some stuff we found on social media. It's already there. Do you want to add Dawn? I'm like, yeah, sure. I add Dawn. And add a colleague as well. Sure, colleague as well. And then Salesflare immediately has the timeline. So the emails we exchanged, the meeting we have scheduled now, maybe if we called on the Android phone or so, it's synchronized in. Also the email tracking, whether you open stuff, whether you clicked on stuff, maybe you went to our site and checked out some things already. All of that is immediately visible. And then if I see like, oh, my colleague Gary also had contact with someone else at Jottful, and the relationship we have with that person is pretty strong, these kind of things are all visible as well. Or if we exchange files, it's already there. So everything is basically there by default. And then from there, you can start doing more. You can say, well, I had a note here. I had an opportunity to follow up, and then I dragged it to another stage. But that is normally the minority of the work. And it doesn't require as much discipline. What usually requires a lot of discipline is every time you see something or you do something that you need to say, oh, well, put this in the system, and put this in the system, and put that in the system.
Remember to do that. You never do. So that is how your business is differentiated in this really crowded market. So that's step number one. And then step number two is figure out how to get that message out to people, right? Because there are plenty of businesses that are sufficiently differentiated and nobody ever hears about it. And that can be really difficult when you have, as you mentioned before, these companies with a lot of money behind them who can really own these marketing channels. So what did you do?
There's a step in between that as well.
Oh, good.
Which is really hard step. That's why I'm mentioning it. It's actually making that message clear and making sure that people can also experience it. This is one of the hardest things. Because back to the CRM market or any software market, or people claim a lot of stuff, and you can claim stuff, but people won't really believe you until they see it. So if another system says, well, we synchronize emails, and then we're like, well, that's fine, but you know, that doesn't mean that. It's a hard message. It's not something you can easily pass unless you can show people like, okay, in that system, first of all, you don't see all the emails, but also it's just only when you do that and that and that and that and that, then you get that. And before that, you need to jump through all these hoops. Showing that is a hard thing. So takes,
clarify your message before you start to promote it. Yes.
Yeah. And it's really about, so it's now we are on a podcast and I can explain it all. It's much clearer, but you don't get that amount of time usually. And if it's your website, for instance, if people go to your site see it and then are not like, oh, so that's why. If they don't see that in the first, let's say 10-15 seconds or so,
Yep.
you lose them. So
Yep.
that is an extremely difficult job.
You know, as somebody who owns a company that builds websites for business owners all the time, this is something we talk about is when people first land on your homepage, you need to make sure that it's very super obvious to them what it is that you do. I forget who it is, but they called it the grunt test, right? Like even a caveman should be able to look at your website and immediately understand what you do. And for a lot of business owners, that means stripping out the jargon that they are so used to using when they talk to other people in their industry in order to really simplify things for the audience. And that can be really, really hard. And I know that we found that going to networking events where you have to speak out loud, a lot of that jargon sounds absolutely ridiculous when you say it out loud. People feel fine typing it, but when you say it out loud, you start to realize that the other person's eyes glass over. You get that immediate feedback, and then you start to improve and really simplify your language. That's one really key point. The other one, which I think you just described, is using a lot of social proof, right? So you talked about people don't necessarily believe that your software can do what you says it does. So it could be that there are videos that show it. It could be there are customer testimonials in written form or in video that explain the results they've achieved with you. It could be awards that you've won. It could be a list of companies that you work with, but all of that social proof really provides evidence, the evidence that people need to believe the points that you're making.
Definitely. And well, all of these things, obviously all of our competitors do as well. So it's doing these things as far as it's not enough to be there. But if you're in a less competitive space, the competition might not be at a super high level. So you might not have to go as deep, but this is all definitely good advice. And as you said, it's also not just about taking reviews, for instance, and putting them on your site, but also sometimes about reading reviews, seeing what words are used, understanding, oh, this is how people, and then try to write it that way.
That's a great strategy. Also read reviews that people have written of your competitors. Also, that's a great way to hear pain points and to get an idea of the kind of words that your audience uses, especially if you aren't yet in the market or you're really new and you don't have a lot of customers yourself yet.
Yeah, I used to do that. I remember the first time I went to G2, the website we mentioned a few times already. That's what I was doing. I was going through all the competitor reviews, reading them and being like, oh, okay, so this is what's going wrong.
Here's the opportunity.
Yeah, the difficulties are already that people need to also understand what the issues are. But anyway, other discussion.
All right, so to compete against the big guys, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you are truly differentiated. The second thing you need to do is get the messaging right for your market so people can understand how it is that you're differentiated and you have some evidence to prove your differentiation. The next thing is to get that message out there. And I know you tried a whole bunch of stuff, Jeroen. Can you talk about what you tried, what worked, what didn't, what your thinking was?
Yeah, and maybe important, what you're doing might also differ in the stage you're in.
Yes.
So I'll go a bit through stages. In the very beginning, we didn't have much. In the beginning, we had nothing.
Of course.
What is best to do at that moment is to start with understanding people. You also don't have the reviews yet that you can read and all those kind of things. There's nothing. So the best thing, this may be more specific to software, but I think another business can be helpful as well, is doing customer interviews. It's really, you have a problem in mind and you sort of know how you're going to solve it. And you have in mind, I'm going to solve it this way. But then and you think, I'm going to solve it for these people. But then pick people that you think you're going to solve a problem for and that you think have that problem, and start interviewing them about that problem, everything around that problem, and the current solutions they have, how that works, what they're happy about, what they're not happy about, why they're not looking for something else, like explore that whole area. And if you do that successfully, first of all, it might be that whatever you have in mind was not exactly what's in reality, and it sort of changes and shifts and it becomes way better. But it's also the start for the next phase, which is when you then actually have a solution to sell it. And if you already sort of had that discovery, which is essential part in sales, really understanding people and what their issue is and how you can solve it. Then once you have a solution, you can say, well, we talked like a few months ago about this, and you said this and this, and that you have this issue. We built something that we think might help you with that now. Would you mind having a look? I mean, I can get it to you as an early whatever. I can get it to you at a discount, and but I would really love to have your feedback on that thing that also. So that we can help shape it and make this even more awesome for you and other people like you. So something like that. So this is how we start. Not very initially. Our first reflex was we had an idea. We're going to pitch it everywhere. Was pretty dumb because we wouldn't really listen to people. We just go there, tell them what we had in mind, and they would pick our idea apart. It would be like, will it do that, or this is weird, or while we should have taken the other approach, like listen to people. And then we took a few steps back. We did that. Then just to go a bit quicker, we went into sales mode. That means we had a lot of conversations with people, really trying to understand them a bit along the same line still, but then also saying, well, we have a solution now, let's explore this, let's set it up for you, demo it, go through the whole process with them. And I think that I really appreciate that we did that. Nowadays, in many businesses, and especially in the business we're in, the idea is that the more customers can do themselves, and the more how can I say, the more frictionless it is, and the less they need us, the better. It's might be true to a certain extent, but if you do that very early on in your process, there's so many things you will not know.
I first of all, let me jump in and say I wholeheartedly agree with that. You can always become more frictionless over time, but that friction in the very beginning is super valuable. You get so much great insight, and it really helps you deliver a better product and really hone your message. And if you're in an industry like ours, the software industry, where oftentimes you need to have investors early on in order to get the business up and running, there's a lot of pressure from investors to move very quickly to become frictionless. And I just, would stress to entrepreneurs, don't listen to that advice. Actually be in as many of those customer calls as possible in the very beginning. Don't move too quickly to become too frictionless. And there will be a ton of outside pressure for you to do that.
Yeah, and additional advice along the same lines, we made that mistake at some point. That one we did make, is that we at some point you feel like you're building the business, but it's not going fast enough yet, and you think like, maybe I'm not the best person to sell this. Let's get us someone else in that will do it.
Yeah,
that was a really dumb idea.
Yeah, it is. But everybody does it. Everybody does it.
Yeah, there's pressure also, not just from yourself, but also from other people. And let's get a pro in. But the thing is, you're the person who is really passionate about the issue. You're the one who thought of the solution, who did all the preparatory work, who understands everything really well. If you are not able to sell it, then maybe it's not to a point yet where it's sellable. And you should definitely not have another person do it, because what you do at that point is you create this kind of gap, this kind of disconnection between you and the customer, while there's still a lot of things to iterate on and a lot of things to learn. So definitely don't do that. Sales is not difficult. It's just about listening to people, understanding what is the problem, what is the context, when do they want to solve it. Who else in the organization maybe needs to decide on this, understand all these kind of things, and then organize yourself around that. it's really not as hard as some people think, but a lot of people are intimidated by it because they think like I'm not an extrovert person, or I'm not whatever. Actually, some of the best salespeople, and I remember that from my very first job in that pharma company, are the most introvert people, because they really have this ability to listen, while some other extrovert people might impress you with their presence or so, but they won't necessarily convince you to buy something.
I think that's an important distinction there. The way small businesses can compete with larger businesses is, at small businesses, it can be the business owner who is the point of contact and who is doing that sale. And I know, as somebody who is a business owner, we now have multiple sales reps. It's a lot faster for me to do the sale. And it is because I have this like extra kind of pixie dust credibility as being the business owner, that when somebody's sitting on the other side, that it just ascribes some kind of power to you. Like they're, wow, I'm talking to the business owner, and that's something that big companies can't do ever.
Actually, to another level, this is a really important way to differentiate. This is one of the things we do. If you go on g2.com, we talked about this website where there's like this 800 CRMs or something. We are the number 2 CRM worldwide in terms of support.
Yes.
So that people really appreciate the customer relationship they have with us. And this is not just because I'm still doing the sales or the support. Taylor is doing that now, but because we don't have to scale our sales or support organization to such a point that the people you get in touch with don't really know what you're talking about anymore, because they're not super well trained, and they don't really have the connection with the product team, and they don't, they're sort of out of the loop, and you're talking to some person that is like loosely attached to things, and it's all vague. And if you talk with us, you know what you're getting. You get answers right away. If you give feedback, we know that it comes back to you. All this kind of things can still happen, and I'm personally quite afraid of us scaling and losing that. But it's obviously something, if we start scaling more, that we'll think about, because I don't want to lose that edge.
Yeah, we're very similar. We talk a lot about how do we deliver personalization at scale. How do we make sure that our customers, who also perceive us as having superior customer support in our industry, feel like they have a human connection with us, and when they contact us, it's not just like there's some number in our CRM. Exactly. And having that is super important. And support is an excellent way to differentiate yourself and really stand out from a big business. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's so hard to scale. It's the easiest way to differentiate. Apart from, of course, differentiate what you offer, the service around it is really important to people, especially like whatever you want. You can find so many things on the internet, so you have so many things to choose from. But in many of these places, you're sort of left on your own, and if you want to solve something out of the ordinary, then you're lost, basically.
You know what? It can be something as simple as, instead of pointing them to documentation and making them do self-service, providing a phone number. I can't tell you how many of our customers say, we're just so happy you give us a phone number. They don't even have to use it. They're grateful to have the number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they know that if they need you, you're there. Yeah. That's an issue with a lot of big companies. So that's one of the easiest way to differentiate. We already found one, apart from the obvious product or service differentiation, and communicating that well. Well, I was in that journey, right? So you stay close to your customers, and then at some point, another pitfall there is I often have SaaS companies locally that are starting off, and they see our marketing and they're like, "Well, that's really great," and they're like, "Can we have a chat with you and then understand how that all works, how you do that?" And then like, okay, sure, we can have that chat, but then we have that chat, and they want to know the whole setup. Like, well, okay, let's take a few steps back. How many times did you sell this already? And they're like, well, we have 2 pilot projects right now. And then I'm like, well, that's cool, but don't you think you should like maybe try to sell that a few times, really understand how that works before you try scaling it and start doing whatever content marketing and blasting things everywhere? And maybe you should cover the basics first. Make sure that the sales process works, that the product you're offering, the rough edges are sort of gone. You really understand how everything works, and then if you want to add more leads on that or hire a salesperson to take over part of it, that's great. But let's start here, and then we'll, that's something that I see a lot of companies. It's a similar mistake to just say sign up here and then don't be there when they sign up.
There's this saying, nail it, then scale it.
Yeah, I use that in some presentations.
Yeah, get it right and then start to grow it. Do it manually, do it manually, do it offline, do what you need to do, make sure it works.
Yeah.
And then automate it and then scale it.
Nail it before you scale it. Yeah. I thought I invented that myself. No, I must have stolen it somewhere. No, or crawl, walk, run is something they say a lot in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Crawl, walk, run, and then you see this caveman who, the picture.
Yes, I know that picture. And there's also the one where if you're going to create a way for a person to move from point A to point B, don't start by building a car. Start by building a skateboard.
Right.
Then graduate to a bicycle and then get to a car eventually. Yeah. I think it's the modern day version of crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, but that's more on the product level, I think.
It's on the product level.
MVP sort of thing.
So you tried some of those other things like PR and blogging, and those are areas where, I mean, for example, if you're up against Salesforce, I don't know how you get your PR to show up. Have those been effective for you?
Well, PR, very early stages, yes. Not so much on the global tech press. It's really hard to get into, but in the local press, we did get in successfully. And that's actually, we got quite some of our first customers from there. For instance, imagine the Financial Times of Belgium. So it's much smaller, obviously. But we got into that a few times, and we were in accelerators that promoted us and all those kind of things. That did help us in the early stages, but it cannot be a consistent strategy, not for most companies at least, because journalists are very selective with regards to what they publish.
Yes, and they like the new business story.
Yeah,
but once you've been around for a little while, you become less interesting.
That's with everyone. That's why the journalists also have that feeling. It's either you're new or you raised money, otherwise you don't get in. And so we did that successfully for a bit. Then we found a new way of promoting ourselves, and that was basically we looked at Google and stuff, and we saw that was a lot of Quora back in the day. It's not a thing anymore, so it's not going to work for you right now. But Quora was pretty dominant in search results. I think Reddit more so nowadays. So we started looking like what kind of things appearing in the Google search results, and let's be on those. And then we would post answers, and then we would have them upvoted, and then we sort of appeared there where people were searching. And they actually were able to find us. That was something that worked for a while, but then Quora started being demoted in Google search results. And the whole game also in Quora completely changed. But that gave us this little transition period. Then we were very active in Facebook groups. These Facebook groups were also still more active back then. Nowadays, Facebook groups are slowly dying. Some are still alive, but most of them not so much anymore. There were these communities coming up, and we really exploited that to the maximum. We really became friends with a lot of people in the communities, both online and then at events as well. We would see people. And we would share a lot of the things in a way that was not promotional. So what our marketing guy at the time would do sometimes was write up a blog post, which was very useful and practical and all that, but have it in Google Docs first, post it in the group for feedback, people would get excited about it and then post it on our blog.
Ah,
That was something that worked then,
yeah.
and we got a lot of appreciation through it. And then they're like, "Oh, Salesflare, what is Salesflare?" And then and we got customers through that.
That's so fascinating. So instead of just sharing a completed blog post with a Facebook group, which would be perceived as awkward in the group, right? You're
Yeah,
publicly
right.
marketing it. Sharing instead a blog post that you're in the process of writing, using it as an opportunity to get feedback, but also you're really promoting your blog post to that audience, but doing it in a way that isn't gross.
It still works. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a while since I've done it, but it still works. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I wrote something about remote sales, for instance, and then I also shared it in a group. I got feedback. It also improves your blog post, and then I put it live.
It reminds me of that saying that if you want to get an investor to invest in you, don't ask them for money, ask them for advice. Similar approach.
Yeah. And I think a lot of community leaders do is ask like, what would be the best cover for my book or something. Just ask, and then people share their opinions, and people love to share their opinions, and then somehow they feel more connected to you.
Yeah. Absolutely. It absolutely works.
Then we launched on a few sites. Back then, Product Hunt was really big. It's still big, but it was more grassroots still. Product Hunt is this website where a lot of people in our target audience would be. And this is people with software companies, people who love new products. We had a really big launch there. We have a full blog post about that. I'm not going to expand too much, but we really did our best to make that a huge launch. And we got a lot of attention from that. I remember we had, I think, 400 companies signing up or so in 2 days.
Wow.
To our well, trying our software at least.
Yeah.
A bunch of those signed up as well. Obviously not 400.
Yeah.
But that sort of put us on the map also.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that then convinced AppSumo. AppSumo is imagine Groupon for software. Convinced AppSumo to promote us, and it's a lifetime deal kind of platform. So you say for this price you can use our software forever for free. We did that with one user free, and then other users at 50% off kind of deal. So not fully free. And then they promoted to 1 million people. It was at the time, and they did like 3 deals a week or 2 deals a week or something. Now they do many deals, and I don't know, but it's everything shifts. So you always need new strategies.
Absolutely.
But that got us 6,000 people back then immediately getting on the software, not just to try it, but actually to use it, which was a huge step because I think at the time we had 50 customers, maybe a bit more, and then all of a sudden add 6,000 that come to use it as well, and it made that many of the things that we didn't scale yet in the past, we all of a sudden had to start scaling. We had some pretty major issues at the beginning, but then we fixed that all, and that helped us as a company to make the next step. The additional advantage is when you do a sort of promotion like that, is a lot of people get to know your services, which is good because they can recommend it to others. Yeah, that's one. Secondly, well, on the affiliate level, these people can be affiliates. Many people also that go for deals are of the type that have, let's say, more time than money. If you know what I mean. So they actually get engaged when there's this kind of affiliates stuff, etc. They really want to make some extra money. And third, they are there if you need reviews, which is really helpful because of one of the things from which we now get a lot of customers is not AppSumo anymore. Not at all. It is from people we got through AppSumo that wrote reviews because they really love what we're doing. It's on these review platforms, and then people read that and they choose us. So for instance, on G2, we're really highly ranked, even though there's so many CRMs where it places in spot number 10, I think, overall, second easiest to use, first easy to set up, and second best support. So we get a lot of visibility from that, which is really important to us nowadays. I don't think that if we wouldn't have done this deal, we would have had the necessary amount of people to get us this amount of reviews.
Interesting.
And then get the paid customers that result from that.
Interesting,
Or it
because
would have
that
taken us way
AppSumo
longer.
deal, the AppSumo deal must be a loss for you, right? You don't really make money on those deals, right?
Well, you get money, but then you need to support these people sort of forever. Of course, many of these people stop using at some moment for various reasons. I never calculate. Probably we made a loss. At the moment, of course, it's a cash inflow.
Right.
But then the effort you need to put into it, probably. But you can also look at it as
exactly.
You get paid to be marketed.
Yeah.
Instead of you paying someone to market you, you get paid to be marketed, and then you have to support people that they convince to get on for that time. So you actually pay afterwards, in a way, for the marketing you get earlier.
Yeah. But it allowed you to get all of these reviews, which started moving you up on these review sites, which is now your largest source of new customers.
Yeah, that really helped us. Because what we get customers from nowadays, it's largely people recommending other people, where the AppSumos help as well, but also just other customers. But with everyone from AppSumo, it's more people, so that gives us more power. Then it's review sites, and then things flow from there also, because there's not just review sites. There's also lots of blogs, listing stuff, etc. But they partly base themselves also on review sites. So there's this kind of natural cycle. And it's only our content marketing is only behind these things. It's a much smaller part of our leads is us writing content that people enjoy, which then makes them decide to use our software.
Yeah. Look, in the end, it all comes back to the decision you made to differentiate using support against bigger companies who can't provide the same level of human personalized support that you do. That allows you to get the higher ratings on all of those sites. And it drives traffic back to you.
Well, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this episode of Marketing Made Easy, please subscribe to Jottful's YouTube channel. That's Jottful. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll meet you on the next one.